Our first panel session that we have today is a series of 3 presentations that will address the need and some solutions for increasing accessibility of ag technology for small farms. Historically, a lot of ag tech has been developed with large-scale industrial agriculture in mind. And these developments are either not applicable or appropriate for growers who have smaller fields or have more diversified cropping systems, or they're not affordable for farmers who are starting with a smaller injection of capital each year. So this panel will share some creative ideas that highlight the difference in need for ag tech that thinks outside the big ag box. And I think just for sake of ease, I'll go ahead and introduce all 3 of the panelists up front and at once. That way I won't keep interjecting and we can just move slowly or smoothly from one presentation to the next. And as a reminder, you can see the full bios for all of our speakers at our main website for this event. And I think we can go ahead and put the link in the chat for you so you can have quick and easy access. Our first speaker today in this panel is David Selassie Opoku, who is a farmer, technologist, and co-founder of Growing Gold Farms. This is a family farm business that's based in Ghana. David works at the intersection of food systems, technology, and education with a focus on making data and technological skills accessible to journalists, advocacy organizations, entrepreneurs, academic institutions, and governments in resource-constrained contexts in over 30 countries across 5 continents. David will be followed by Jacki Martinez Perkins, who works for the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association as their dairy and livestock specialist. Jacki will be speaking about one of her roles in managing the scheduling and payments for MOFGA's Share Use Farm Equipment Pool, which is a program that allows participants to rent available equipment at low cost without the need to maintain their rented equipment. And finally, we will hear from Wade Miller, the Senior Director of Farm Resources at Organic Valley CROPP Cooperative. Wade began his career as a farm lender in 1987, and after 26 years in lending, he joined CROPP Cooperative. As the Senior Director of Farm Resources, he leads a department of professionals providing expertise in organic farming practices, organic certification, farm sustainability, farmer engagement, and farm business. I want to thank all 3 of you so much for being here today and for sharing your invaluable experiences and expertise. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to David to kick us off.
Thank you so much, Amber. That's a great intro. Can you see my screen now?
It looks great.
Awesome. All right. So I think Samir did a great job just getting us started and has highlighted a number of things that I don't need to spend time covering. But I do want to start with dignity. And the reason why that is important is at the end of the day, why do food systems exist? So I like to start with a definition. Merriam-Webster and Wikipedia say that the quality of being worthy of honor or respect. And Wikipedia said the right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake and to be treated ethically. And so I want us to keep this in mind because at the end of the day, food systems should exist to bring dignity to people, communities. This is another long definition. I'm not gonna let you read through that, but it is highlighting ways in which we violate human dignity. So being dependent upon others to stay alive is a violation of dignity, even in the absence of more direct violations. And then secondly, it's cumulative experience of not being able to afford the same clothes, entertainment, social events, education, and other features of typical life in societies. So I want you to think about this because this will serve as the foundation for a lot of the conversations that we'll be having or discussing. Now, I saw this article a few days ago, which gives a sense of we do have a global food system that we are trying to enhance and improve, but there are systemic injustice, as Samir has highlighted. The World Economic Forum is trying to come up with ideas on how we can improve that. But this is important, and I suggest you look at this article later on because it highlights a lot of things that show us that our current food system is not necessarily leading us to the point of dignity that we actually should have as human beings. For growing goat farms, my dad has been a farmer for over 40 years. I grew up in a farming family. And one of the things that we wanted to do is that ensure that we can build a farm in Ghana that does a number of things when it comes to sustainability. We define sustainability as being physiological. That is, it has to lead to the well-being of the individuals and actors involved. Communal, it should enhance the community goals that exist within that community that is involved. It should lead to some economic and financial improvements, freedom of flexibilities. It should have a positive impact on the environment. It should either maintain it or enhance it, but not degrade it. And then finally, it should lead to some sense of spiritual connection. And we believe that when a food system does this, it really enhances human dignity. Let's talk about AgTech. I've looked this up online, and this was one of the images I saw. We're talking about AgTech, and you see the 50 top landscape when it comes to AgTech and robotics, hardware and water management, so many different things related to digital technology hardware, and that's very celebrated. Also, when you look at the top 20 countries by investments, you see the US, China, India, UK, a lot of Western countries in here that a lot of these AgTech technologies are either being developed in or being funded. And then when we look at the main investors for these kind of technologies, predominantly Western countries, the US, heavily focused in California. Finally, most of these AgTech technologies aim to improve things such as chemical residue runoff, food waste, opaque supply chains, labor shortages. And the question is, how did we get here? Was there not a food system in the past that on its own was designed intelligently to solve some of these issues as opposed to disrupting them and now having to have capitalist approaches, systems that try to solve this for specific reasons? I like to play this game, which I call, what does Google think about farmers? And so doing a quick search, searching for AgTech founders, these are just images that came up. Let's pay attention to what that looks like. And then I do a search for rich farmers, and these are the images that come up. I do a search for successful farmers, and these are the images that come up. But then when we do a search for poor farmers, these are the images that come up. What about uneducated farmers? Also, these are the images. And finally, subsistence farmers. These are the images we get. The reason why this is important is because there's an underlying perception that subsistence smallholder farmers are uneducated, poor, and to some extent need to be rescued. And so when you look at an article like this, where a group of people are sending equipment to farmers in Africa that would bring them hope and will help them become more entrepreneurial and solve their food shortage issues. It vilifies subsistence farming as a system of farming that is primitive. And in this discussion, conversation, I want to challenge that. It's gotten to the point where even farmers, especially in resource-constrained countries, have started believing that their system of farming is subpar and Western systems of farming are superior. Now, this can be very dangerous because it's leading us to think about one way of feeding the world and not paying attention to the innovative systems that have existed historically that we can leverage on to feed the world. I like to do this exercise where I show a simplified version of a Ghanaian agri-food system, emphasis on simplified, because it allows us to look at examples of different types of food systems and what their characteristics are, and be able to assess whether including more technology would actually enhance it or deteriorate it. So we'll be looking at the 3 different food systems by input, production, processing and distribution, marketing, and consumers, along the axes of the actors, workers, the community, location, resources, and profits. So let's start with commercial local. So this is basically commercially focused farmings that are primarily for profit, but are feeding a local population. So as you can see, when it comes to inputs, most of the actors are multinational companies located internationally. Their resources are proprietary, vast, and private, and they tend to have high profits. So everything from GMO companies, hybrid firms, most of them located in the West. But for production, most of that is being done by the farmer, located in rural communities. They tend to have limited resources and primarily low profits because they don't really focus on that as their eventual goal. Processing usually being done by medium scale enterprises, usually peri-urban. Resources are, and then the products usually also done by small and medium enterprises, usually urban, private resources, low to high profits. And as you can see, the consumers go from urban, located, resources are private and high, and most of the time, not that much profit. The next is commercial exports, and this is usually cash crop. And examples include cocoa, coffee, and other things that are exported out of the countries. Most of the inputs are coming from government agencies. Profits tend to be low for these governments. Production, again, is done by farmers. As you can see, profits are low. Distribution and processing, multinationals, marketing by multinationals, and the consumers usually are medium to high income, located in rural and urban. Outside those countries most of the time, resources are medium to high. Now let's look at subsistence farming. You can see quite a drastic difference. When it comes to inputs, the actors for those inputs are the farmers or the local communities themselves. They own the seeds. They own the inputs that have to go in there, the water systems. Their resources are communal, and profits end up being reinvested locally. Production, also pretty similar. Processing, distribution, also pretty similar. Marketing, pretty similar, and the consumers are themselves. So you see a more equitable system of farming where each player is either supporting another one involved in the system, and the profits that are coming back are generally reinvested when you think about the system of farming. So again, when we look at the sustainability factors that we think about, again, does it improve the well-being of actors involved? Does it elevate and strengthen the goals of the community? Does it increase economic freedom and capability? Does it respect, maintain, and improve the environment it touches? And does it create a sense of spiritual connection? We say commercial, local, maybe physiologically, yes, it's feeding people. Economically, it's bringing in some money, finance, but those 3 areas are lacking. Commercial exports. Most of the actors involved are not gaining any physiological benefits from planting these fruits. Most of them just get sent away. They gain some money, but there's even a question about how much benefit is that money in terms of the food and the nutrition they end up losing. Even when they gain money, they will have to go back and pay or buy poorly processed or grown foods, which have an impact also, again, on their physiological health. But for subsistence farming, we see benefits physiologically, communally, environmentally, and spiritual. There is debate around whether that is economically viable. And I believe this is where technology can sometimes help. And that is what I want to point out in my next slide. So again, when you include technology in the commercial local farming system, it still doesn't really change much. It just enhances all the factors that already exist. When you include it in a commercial export, it also enhances the things that already exist, giving more profits to the actors who are already benefiting. But for subsistence farming, because it's inherently built and designed to benefit the actors involved, it can also lead to better opportunities if they are interested in driving more economic resources or funds. If they want to access more markets, that becomes possible. There's a lot of research that exists. One of those that I can cite is this paper that really highlights the fact that farmers have been developing sustainable tech for a while. So one of the things is these technologies or these systems meet local demand for food manufacturing and trade as part of diverse livelihood strategies. They support large populations with diverse occupations and hierarchical social structures. There's internal feedback mechanisms to drive decision-making and management efficiently, and communities decide how to manage the season, and that even involves households acting accordingly. And then there's a lot of experimentation and innovation. So if you look at planting methods of the Ashantis or the Yorubas or people from the Sokoto region of West Africa and across different parts of the world, you see very advanced ways of developing irrigation systems, technologies that supports the system of farming that is focused on ensuring communities can thrive, families can thrive. And the point I want to make is any food system that primarily optimizes for yield, aka profits, aka power, will eventually dehumanize people, irrespective of technology. Technology just speeds it up. So then, what do we do? For my work and my interests, especially with the Stanford Digital Civil Society Lab, we are finding ways that we can celebrate the brilliance and resilience of subsistence farmers and communities. Challenge the narratives that position subsistence farmers as entrepreneurial and innovative, or that do not position them as entrepreneurial and innovative. And then tackle historic and systemic barriers that prevent subsistence farmers from being originators, owners, and investors in food technologies. This is ongoing work, but an example of an organization based in Ghana that's exploring this is called Cocoa 360. Check them out, but they are innovating ways as a farming community of how to change the narrative around cocoa and how that goes into health, how that goes into education, how that goes into business. And also working with an organization called Wonder Space, where we're changing the narrative around what farmers look like, why they're amazing, so that young people who are coming up really appreciate what farmers do and how they can become sources of innovation and even start technology companies that meet these values. So with this, I'll ask the question, who and what are you optimizing for with our technologies? And with that, I'll just say thank you.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm Jacki Perkins. And if you're giving me a minute to share my screen, I'm going to talk about our shared use farm equipment program. So at the Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, we started a program called the Shared Use Farm Equipment Program with another organization known as Maine Farmland Trust. And both organizations are dedicated to equitable access for farmland and farming strategies. So there was the understanding that farming equipment can be cost prohibitive, and the need for some beginning farmers to be able to scale up in their production models. And as nonprofits, we are able to raise the money to buy equipment and also hire someone to maintain that equipment. So we started gathering equipment, and we do not, I will admit, we do not promote this program as much online as we could. It's a lot of word of mouth, but where we have it online, we can see farm training programs is where we house it, because again, it's used a lot by our beginning farmers, and you can find it under the Shared Use Farm Equipment Program. And this leads us to the actual website, where we have a list of some of the things that we will rent out. There's the basic rundown of how to access the program. Essentially, you email me and I send out PDFs of an agreement that says, you have the equipment for this much time, please bring it back, clean it. If you don't clean it, there's a fee, because again, we are an organic organization. So we want to be able to make sure that what is going out to our farmers is safe for their certification program. So all of the equipment needs to be cleaned in an appropriate way. And send in $100 payment for the year. That $100 is waived for people of the BIPOC community and veterans. And a program that MOFGA runs called the Journey Person Program, which is for new and beginning farmers of 1 or 2 years. And that was meant to give them a helping hand in starting their business. So some of the things that we have that are really, really popular are the seedbed cultivator, the 2-shank subsoiler. Those are some of the equipment pieces that allow farmers to test out if they can access some of the larger markets and ramp up their production to be able to afford their own equipment. Some of the new things we have on are the 3D printer. We just got donated a microscope to be able to do livestock fecal testing for parasites. And what happens is someone will call me or they'll send me an email, and I can either email out a PDF version of the agreement, or I can mail one out, and we are happy to accept it back by mail or a scanned photo. And I will wait to schedule someone on the calendar until I receive their paperwork back. And I'm very, very clear about that, because it is actually my litmus test on how dedicated they will be to helping us to take care of the equipment for everyone. And it just keeps me on task. If I have their paperwork, I can schedule them on the calendar, and I do not do the maintenance of the machinery. We have a dedicated shop and a dedicated shop person. And once I get the people's paperwork that would like to rent this equipment, I contact our shop manager, and he sets up a time with the person that would like to borrow whatever equipment they want to borrow. And he will meet with them, part of the agreement is that you look over the equipment. If you both agree it looks fine and is in working condition, then it can be taken off the premises. It's taken off the premises for roughly a week, and then it will come back for the next person should they need it. Another piece of equipment that isn't in the list, but you'll see it down on the photos, is the no-till grain drill. And that one is very, very popular, as well as the manure spreader. So the no-till grain drill is one that we must make sure is clean per organic certification standards. So that one goes out to a lot of different farmers, not necessarily organic farmers. And I will say, though that program was started with Maine Farmland Trust, they've taken a step back and they've allowed MAFCA to steward this program by ourselves. So this is kind of what the website looks like. There's my contact information. There's the shop manager's information. The other piece of this that I use for myself is I have a spreadsheet checklist with all the pieces of equipment on. If I've received their paperwork, the date the equipment goes out, the date it comes back, and whether or not they need to pay. Some of the equipment isn't completely up online. Again, we are not utilizing our online advertisement of this program probably as much as we should. We do have a chicken plucker available that is really helpful for some of the people that are utilizing some of the slaughter law structure that we have in the state of Maine, specifically for poultry. We have size exemptions. We have a 10,000 bird exemption where you don't need to be inspected. And I will be honest, once you get above 30 birds, plucking can be daunting unless you have a crew. So for those that are just getting started in poultry, the plucker can be really nice. My shop manager likes to say that the plucker is his most frustrating piece of equipment because it is so hard to clean. So he keeps he keeps wanting that to not necessarily go on the website, and I keep asking him if it could, and sometimes we don't always know where it landed, but the program is getting better as it goes, and a lot of that meant that it just needed to land in someone's wheelhouse so that they could take ownership of it, and that ended up being me. One of my other tools that I use is the Google Calendar. And that's because I use the Google Suite. I could easily do it on a paper calendar, but it also helps me to communicate with the other people in that are involved in the program. MAFCA is one where we're very willing to share, and we're very willing to share labor. We take lots of volunteers. So being able to coordinate responsibilities of who is going to maintain the equipment, who will be around to meet with somebody. It was easiest for me to use the Google Calendar to do that because it sends notifications to the people that need them. And because MAFCA uses the Google Suite, it tends to be the easiest way for me to do that. So people come from all over the state of Maine. We do limit, Maine has a certain amount of islands, and we get a little nervous about something like the no-till drill going out on a ferry to an island just because of ballast and weather and weight distribution. So we don't want to lose a $30,000 piece of equipment into the ocean. So we have said no to in cases like that. We also at MAFCA do not have a transport trailer, nor any front loading equipment large enough to pick up that no-till drill and put it onto someone's trailer. However, that can be driven down the road, given that you drive less than 45 miles per hour. The challenge that I do find with the shared equipment programs that anyone has ever tried to start, and sometimes specifically with that no-till grain drill, is that farming is really seasonal, and we hesitate to have any haymaking equipment on hand for people to borrow. The no-till drill gets scheduled very, very tightly in the spring. And that is simply because if you need it, it's weather dependent, you need it now. So what we have done instead in some cases is asked farmers in particular areas if they have equipment and they would be willing to lend some of it out in an organized way. And some farmers are very willing to do that. The complication comes when, what happens if something breaks? And that was where we developed the $100 fee. And we also operate as a nonprofit to help cover some of those costs of fixing it. There have been cases where we have been given equipment that was not cost effective for us to fix and use. So we ended up selling it to help cover the costs of some of the other equipment that is currently in the pool, fixing and maintaining. But generally people understand that they should treat equipment gently and bring it back clean and in fairly good working order. The only other thing I would say about the shared use farm equipment program is that I think once we get more participants realizing that we do have some new equipment and they would like to access the program, it will generate enough funds to purchase some of the other equipment we have talked about. For example, we have talked about a portable vegetable washing unit. And the idea, the concept is we always try to keep it so it's not seasonal, but might be useful for beginning farmers to try the equipment, decide whether or not they like it. So some of the things we've talked about besides that is maybe a portable sawmill, a livestock trailer for transporting livestock. Not everybody has the needs all at the same time. So as the program gets more streamlined and cohesive, we're hoping it will bring in enough interest for our board to approve some of our purchases and also continue that revenue stream just for ourselves to be able to maintain the equipment. Because with increased interest in the farming community, there is always increased interest from donors in wanting to be able to support those systems. And that is pretty much all I have about the shared use farm equipment program. The people that access it like it and do eventually end up purchasing their own equipment. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Jackie. This is Amber. I'm just coming in without my video here. I wanted to remind folks, thank you so much for all the engagement in the chat. And I wanted to remind everybody that we won't be having a Q&A session at the end of the panel, but the panelists can answer some of the questions in the chat box as we move forward. So next up, we have Wade.
Hello, are you seeing my screen?
No, we're not. Can you try again, Wade?
Yes. Well, thank you, Jackie. As a past lender, I understand the cost of equipment, and that's some program you have there. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, it's starting to load. Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. So I'm Wade Miller. I'm with CROPP Cooperative. It's an organic marketing cooperative. You might know us by our brand, Organic Valley, a little better. And I want to talk about harnessing technology through cooperation, right? That's our core. Everything we do is through cooperation. At OV, our mission is to save family farms. It's always been our mission for 35 years. It's still our mission. It's still what we work to do every day. And at Organic Valley, I lead a team called Farm Resources that can best probably be envisioned as a private ag extension service for our members. And so ag technology is one of our lanes. And so I feel happy to talk today about how we do ag technology through cooperation. I will show you 4 slides and talk about 2 projects that we've done. But before that, I just want to frame up a little bit about the cooperative and our culture. So about the cooperative, I want to give you a how, what, and why around ag technology and how we do it. So how we develop new science and technology, I'll talk about some of that today. And we disseminate knowledge, information, and services to our members, okay? So then we move on to what that enables our members to do. That enables our members to deliver enhanced social, ecological, and nutritional value to the marketplace. And we'll talk about those 3 things. Why do we do it? Because getting paid more for increased value in the marketplace is what saves family farms, right? Nobody here is unfamiliar with the economics of agriculture. So what you're going to not see me talk about is us delivering to the farm hardware, software, data input demands, things like this. We deliver to the farm knowledge, information, and services. Okay. Our culture. I said I would talk a little bit about our culture. We are an honest marketing vehicle for our farmers. That's how we see ourselves. That's how we've always seen ourselves. And so that means 2 things are very important to us, well, among many, but the 2 I'll talk about are transparency and member engagement. Okay, so our co-op is made up of a business side and a member side. On the business side, we do all the things you would typically think of for a marketing cooperative: marketing, sales, distribution, so on and so forth, all of that kind of thing. But we reserve governance for the farmer side. Okay, we have a board of directors that are all active shippers, and we have many, many committees that drive the farm side of our business. So we'll discuss a couple of those as we move through. What that means is everything we do is designed for farmers. It's designed by farmers, and it works for farmers, right? That's our sort of our gold standard. If it's not going to work for us, we're not working on it. So I'm going to go on past my title slide here and get into the first project I said I would share. And it's our dairy life cycle assessment. You're seeing a picture here that came from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, whose researchers worked with us to do a dairy life cycle assessment. And this, I like this picture because it's not complete, because it was drawn up before our farmer committee was formed. So I'll talk about that a little bit. We've always had a culture of sustainability in the co-op. Our farmers have always felt like soil and water and animals and everything's close to their heart. They're small farmers, right? And so they've always been very committed to sustainability. And now we've moved into a world where we have threat of climate change, right? That's a big deal. So how do we respond? Well, our sustainability team went out and did a greenhouse gas inventory and determined our entire impacts of our business and farms on the world, okay? And so they used science and technology to do that. And then we further determined through this life cycle assessment work with the University of Wisconsin that dairy is 84% of our impact. We're mostly a dairy company. So now we know where we need to focus our energies. So we formed a climate committee, okay, of farmers to help steer and guide our work. And they said, well, we have here the first ever organic dairy life cycle assessment information coming from the University of Madison, but we're not happy with it because it doesn't have pasture science included in it. We are a pasture-based company. We are not an indoor commercial industrial dairy type company, right? Our cows are outside on pasture. So we went to New Zealand. They said, we've heard of science in New Zealand, go get that. We went to New Zealand, we brought it to Madison, they studied it out and they said, this is solid science. We will incorporate this, making you further advanced in this, right? One of a kind study here. And then the farmers said, you know, we've been putting carbon in our soil for generations. We measure the organic matter in our soil. We know that we're improving our soil. So where is carbon sequestration in this picture? And so we went back to the university and we said, we want you to develop the science and incorporate that into our model. And they did. So here again, first ever life cycle assessment to include that. What did we find out when they released their study to us? And this will be a peer-reviewed study you'll be able to read in the next few months, is that we are low carbon milk. We have numbers that no one else can touch domestically. Only New Zealand can run with us. They are also pasture-based, heavily pasture-based. And they have a climate, that's a little bit more helpful for that than some of our northern regions. So we're really proud that we are low carbon milk. So what does our climate committee do with that? They say, well, we're going to set a goal to improve that, right? We're going to go neutral. And we're going to have some staging goals, and we're going to do it for real. We're not going to buy credits or these kinds of things. We are going to change our farming practices, and we're going to be neutral. So we started focusing in on practices that have helped us be low carbon and how to further enhance them and spread them and educate to them to take us to neutral. And we call this climate smart farming. And here's some of the practices down here. How to really make that happen, right? Our climate committee, our governance structure, our farmer side of the business decided to authorize an energy fund, right? So our farmers can get low interest, long-term loans with no down payments through a cooperative that we cooperate with, our partner cooperative, in order to advance our energy, renewable energy program. Further than that, they authorized a carbon insetting program, right, which we are putting the final touches on now. And if you track our company, you'll hear a lot more about it in the coming couple of months. Basically, we're saying we are going to pay our farmers for carbon. We're going to bring that carbon to the market. We're going to enhance our products. We are going to ask for premiums in the marketplace so farmers can change the way they're impacting the earth. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. So through science and technology, all this stuff has to be measured and it has to be authenticated and so on and so forth and studied out. And we're leading a lot of that work. We are opening the carbon market to small family farms. And this is a big concern that's been running around in the circles of the carbon world, is how are the small farms going to access this? Or is it just going to be a big industrial greenwash play? So that is that project. I want to tell you about another project called satellite grazing. Okay, and what you're looking at here is a one-page report that the farmers who are voluntarily signed up for our satellite grazing program receive on a weekly basis during their pasture season. So grazing culturally is part of our foundation. Grazing underpins our animal care, all right? We've got world-class animal care, and it's all predicated on cattle outside in their natural environment, right? Not in a building. It underpins our nutrition, right? We have studies in science that show that the CLAs in our milk are more healthy than other people's milk, and it's driven largely by pasture, okay? It underpins the economics for our farmers. Pasture is the low-cost feed, so our small family farms understand that's how they can compete with an industrial indoor operation. It underpins our environmental piece. We've already talked about how it underpins carbon sequestration. It cleans the water, biodiversity, all the stacked benefits you get environmentally. So that's why pasture is so core to us and why we do it in spades. We have a pasture committee, probably no surprise to you, right? Their mission is to maximize pasture. Okay, I've had that committee for 10 years. We also have what I consider to be the best pasture specialist in organic agriculture in the country, Dr. Greg Brickner. This program was his idea. Okay, we have a data and analytics department in our co-op. We have two guys in there, Phil and Hans. They're amazing. They can make this, which is new technology that no one else has, right? So what we did here was we went out and purchased pictures of our farmers' paddocks. Phil and Hans built algorithms to select pictures and turn the visual, and they use a light wave into a report of how much dry matter, how much feed is in each of those paddocks, okay? And we give this report to the farmers. We expect that through the information they glean here, they will be able to achieve 20% improvement in pasture utilization. It'll put money in their pockets. They'll put more carbon in the ground, and we'll have better animal care by enhancing our pasture. I'll just tell you what this is. The upper right-hand picture is sort of the raw picture in DVI picture, and it shows the variability in the paddocks. So a person could look at that and see where they think they might need more irrigation water, where they might need more fertility, where they might need to do some overseeding from trampling, and that type of information. On the left, it's an equalized picture, right? So every paddock has one color based on the average of that paddock. And that is telling us how much total feed is in that paddock. Those bars along the bottom, every paddock has a bar. The bar on the far left has the most feed in it. It's probably where the farmer is going to go next. The bar on the right has the least feed in it. It is probably where the farmer is grazing right now or just finished. That line in between those circles is selected by the farmer and his plant species and his grazing techniques. And he's determining what his optimum would be in his paddocks. If all of those bars ended right on that line, that would be the optimum. And then looking at that, he can see if he is starting to fall behind in feed production in the paddocks, or if he's getting ahead, he might need to make some hay, he might need to slow down his rotation or speed it up, or whatever needs to be done there. So the thing I'll say here is all of this technology is done cooperatively by a select few people and computers behind the scenes, and the farmer gets the information that they can use on their farm to do the job that they want to do. Thank you. I appreciate your time.